Hello, everybody out there. So, for you guys today, I have my week 9 fantasy football matchups to exploit and matchups to avoid. This series is literally based off of the combination of tape, watching defenses, watching offenses, seeing how they're playing, again, stopping the run, stopping the pass, and then how teams are obviously running the football, passing the football, and it is also including statistics. We are merging these two things together. My goal before doing all of these videos is to make sure that I'm watching all of these games between 2 and 3 times every single week so that I can really, like I said, merge these two things together. So this week there are some matchups to avoid at the running back position. I'm going to hop right into those. The first matchup you might want to consider, obviously, he is going to be started in every league. We saw what happened in week 8. It could happen again in week 9. It is the Patriots going up against the Falcons. Bijan Robinson could be in trouble. It is a weird situation where Bijan is looking great on the season, but the Patriots run defense is looking great on the season. You obviously drafted to start him. You have to start him every single week, but this matchup against the Patriots is not looking that great for Bijan or even Tyler Algier for that matter. The Patriots right now through the past 3 weeks are number 1 in rush yards allowed to the running back position. They are also top 5 on the season for rushing yards allowed to the running back spot. This game probably will not be very high scoring. I don't know if we're going to end up seeing Michael Penix playing or if it is going to go back to Kirk Cousins. Either way, the offense for the Falcons really has to go through Bijan. And like we saw in week 8, if a team says, hey, we're not letting you run the football, and that was the Miami Dolphins defense. Keep that in mind. If a team's defense says, hey, you're not running the football, this offense for the Falcons shuts down, and they do not score a lot of points. The next matchup, the team that's number 2 the past 3 weeks to rush yards allowed to the running back position, it is the Seattle Seahawks. I believe that they are also top 5 on the season. Unfortunately for the Washington Commanders and JCM, Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, all these guys, Seattle's not letting you run the football. It is also one of those things to consider that when Jaden Daniels is not playing, so if he misses, it's an absolute fade, fade, fade. Those matchups where Marcus Mariota is starting, JCM is pretty much left for dead. So if it is Marcus, you really can't start him. If it's Jaden, you really shouldn't still start him. And in most leagues, you should have better options to start, especially when they're going up against the number 2 team at this point in time through the past 3 weeks and a top 5 team to rushing yards allowed to the running back position. The next fun matchup to look at, and again, it's somebody you draft to start, so you probably have to start him. It is James Cook going up against Kansas City. He had a couple rough weeks. He bounced back in week 8. It is one of those weird things where I've been saying there's a lot of negative matchups for James Cook. Kansas City is not letting you get there on the ground. They're not letting you pass too effectively, but they're more of a passing funnel, very similar to how Seattle is, where they're letting you pass more, obviously, because teams are having to pass, because their offenses can score, but their defense doesn't let you run the football. It's not my favorite matchup for James Cook, just like it hasn't been in weeks past, but it is really similar to the Bijan situation. Do not put all your chips and eggs in the basket that he is going to carry your fantasy football team to victory in week 9. The next matchup that I am looking at to fade and avoid is J.K. Dobbins going up against the Houston Texans. It's been kind of fun, watching J.K. Dobbins because almost every single week that I am saying he's in a matchup to exploit, the guy goes out there, he rushes for over 80 yards. In the matchup he has a touchdown, he's a pretty smash play for fantasy football. This is not going to be one of those weeks. This matchup between the Texans and the Broncos is going to be a defensive battle. Ultimately, when it comes to JK, you can say it transfers right over to RJ Harvey as well. The positive matchups, both of those guys are going to be live and viable, especially JK Dobbins because he is the lead down back for this football team. At some point in time, RJ Harvey may transition into that role. He absolutely popped off last week, just like I thought JK was going to. It was a positive matchup for both of these guys from the running back spot. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, the Texans are not letting you run the football. They're not letting you pass. Their defense is absolutely a top 5 defense in the NFL. J.K. Dobbins, RJ Harvey are not set up to smash, which I normally say they're set up to smash, but they are not set up to smash in week 9. The next matchup I'm looking at is the Vikings going up against the Lions. Unfortunately, just for the last list of guys, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason are going to get demolished in the run game going up against the Lions. The biggest issue for these two backs as well is we know the Lions can score a lot of points. Because the Lions can score on whoever they want, whenever they want, it'll ultimately set it up where the Vikings are going to be behind. They're going to have to pass the football, not only because the Lions don't let you run, but also because they're going to be so far ahead, the Vikings will have no choice but to pass. On the flip side of that same matchup, looking at matchups to exploit. So these are the running back matchups that I am like, these guys are starting. They have to be in your starting lineup and they should be in smash spots for week 9. So on the flip side of that matchup, the Vikings are letting you get there on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs, and this is one of those weeks where Monty should be able to get there as well for the Lions. It's not as juicy of like a run funnel of a defense right now. Kind of a no-brainer that every single week, Jahmyr Gibbs is a lot like Bijan Robinson, CMC, James Cook. These are guys that you're starting every single week, regardless of how bad the matchup is. He's been in some negative like running scripts or against really hard run defenses, and Jahmyr Gibbs has still gotten there. Unfortunately, when it comes to David Montgomery, he's not been able to, so he's really been a plug and play guy against easier run defenses. I wouldn't expect a 20 point something performance out of him, but 15, 16, 17 points is very in like the realm of reason. He could finish as like a high end RB2 in week 9. The next matchup that you should consider exploiting, and you have to start him, it is Kamani Vidal going up against Tennessee Titans. The Titans have been a run funnel. They're also a pass funnel. Their defense is horrible. They cannot stop anybody on the ground, through the air. The Chargers will be able to just absolutely dominate and control this football game. It is a great situation though for the run game for the Chargers, because the Titans can't score points. They're not going to be pushing the Chargers to like have to pass the football in the second half. It should be a game they are able to salt away in the second half with Kamani Vidal. The next matchup to consider, and I do mean consider exploiting because it's like one of those things where I hate split backfields right now for fantasy football. It is the Seahawks going up against the Commanders. It is one of those things where if Jaden plays or doesn't play, it really doesn't matter. Their run defense is not that great. Kenneth Walker and possibly even Zach Charbonnet, because he's stealing all of Kenneth Walker's touchdowns, should be set up to have a pretty good game against this really subpar run defense for the Washington Commanders. So this should be a game where Seattle's in control. They're able to score points. They're able to get there on the ground because of how bad the Commanders' run defense is, and they should be able to run the ball a decent chunk of times in the second half with a really decent lead. So the next matchup to exploit, and you're starting him no matter what, obviously at this point in time, but it's the first like positive matchup, so I want to touch on it real quick. It is the 49ers going up against the Giants. Giants run defense is horrible. You're starting CMC no matter what. Smash play for Christian McCaffrey. It's one of the best matchups he's had so far on the season. The next matchup is the Bengals, who are going up against the Bears. This game has the potential to be a higher scoring game, which is fantastic for DeAndre Swift. In week 6 and week 7, he looked absolutely explosive and dominant. The good news for him is that in matchups where it's been exploitable on the ground for the running backs, like the teams the Bears are going against, DeAndre Swift is smashed, like in week 6 and week 7. I'm anticipating, like I said, higher scoring game, lots of points scored. DeAndre Swift should be able to get at least 1 touchdown in this football game, like lock that in, maybe even 2. Pal Monungai should be able to do decently well as well because of how bad Cincy's run defense and pass defense is. So the next matchup to consider exploiting, and it's not my favorite only because of the running backs, is the Cardinals going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Bad news for Dallas. Through the past 3 weeks, they are the last. They are literally 32nd in rush yards allowed to the running back position. I believe on the season, they're either bottom 2 or bottom 3 in rush yards allowed as well. They weren't that great last year. It's even worse this year. It's also because teams are able to pass so effectively against the Cowboys. The Cardinals should be set up to absolutely smash this football game. Probably a higher scoring game. Bam Knight should be able to get there. Again, I don't love the running back room for the Cardinals right now. Without James Conner, without Trey Benson, it's not my favorite. So Bam Knight, probably not like a high end guy on the week just because of the talent profile, but he should be like an RB2, more of like probably like a middling to a bottom of the barrel RB2, but definitely somebody you're going to want to start and want to try and exploit this like horrible Dallas Cowboys run defense. So the first matchup to exploit is the Bengals going up against the Bears. I said earlier, the Bengals run defense is horrible. The pass defense is also horrible. Should be a higher scoring game. Roma Dunze, DJ Moore should be able to get there this week. I wouldn't be shocked if a Dunze pops off and has one of his best games on the season. And if DJ Moore is one of those people where people are like, oh, he's back. No, he's not necessarily back, but it is the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals can't stop anybody on defense. And because Joe Flacco and the offense for the Bengals is good, higher scoring game, absolutely smash spot for all the Bears wide receivers. Next matchup to consider is the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Commanders. Unfortunately for the Commanders, run defense is bad, pass defense is bad. This game might not be that high scoring. You're already starting JSN no matter what, but JSN is really live in week 9. Flip side of that exact same matchup, unfortunately, I don't think Terry McLaurin's going to play, but both Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz, because of how bad Seattle's like pass defense is, it's not that it's horrible, but it is one of those things where they're not letting you run, so teams have to pass to try and keep up and get ahead side of Seattle. So Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz should also be live in week 9. Another matchup that I'm looking at is the Giants against the 49ers. The 49ers pass defense and run defense aren't that great. Their pass defense is absolutely horrible. They are bottom 5 in pass yards allowed through the past 3 weeks. That should mean that Jackson Dart should be able to get there through the air. Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Theo Johnson should be live in week 9. The offense for the Giants surprisingly can score a lot of points. My only concern for this matchup is that Cam Scadaboo's ankle, being completely torn off his foot basically. He is not going to be playing for the rest of the season. I don't know how effective the Giants will look without him out there. So the last 2 matchups are actually playing against each other in week 9. It is the Colts going up against the Steelers. Both of them are bottom 2. I guess they're combining for 31st and 32nd in pass yards allowed for the past 3 weeks. This game could be higher scoring just because we do know that Aaron Rodgers has been live on the entire season. We do know that the Colts offense has been fantastic. Danny Dimes is out there throwing dimes again actually this season in 2025. I do think Michael Pittman, Josh Downs are absolutely smash plays this week. DK Metcalf, and I really don't know about any of the other wide receivers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe the tight ends get there. Potentially higher scoring game. Bad pass defenses should set up where both of these teams, wide receivers and quarterbacks, should look pretty good this coming week. Alrighty, so there are my week 9 matchups for the running backs and a little bit for the wide receivers to both exploit and avoid for this coming week's games. Hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship in 2025. If you are somebody who's in a deeper league, I know the waiver wire sucks. I've been making my videos specifically for deeper leagues. At this point in time, we are trying to find people who potentially, just potentially, could be viable in the back half of the season. I think I've done a pretty good job at identifying some of those players in my most recent video. Be down here, up here, somewhere on the screen. If you're in a league where you're like, hey Ethan, I don't need anybody, I'm good, but you're in a league that uses DST and you are streaming DST, I will also have that video somewhere around here as well. So if you feel so inclined and you're looking for a DST or looking to pick up somebody on the waiver wire, go check out one of those videos. Hopefully I'll see you guys again. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day.